Okay, I think we'll just go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to our Monetary Professional Communicators meeting. We've invited some of our NDPC members from across the state to join us since we're doing this virtually. And I want to welcome you all here and welcome Amy Steinert, who's our presenter today. She's going to be talking about graphic design. She is a web and graphic designer from Bismarck. She has worked in the creative industry for more than 15 years and has done some wonderful work. And that's why we've asked her to share with us some of the tips and tools of the trade to help us all be better at what we do. So Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you and go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Jill did not say I'm a public speaker, which I'm not. So please know that. I love to interact with people. So this doesn't really need me just to be talking at you guys. I know that you guys might be having lunch, but please ask questions during my presentation, or we can have a question at the end. Questions can be asked at the end as well. But we'll just dive right in. I have my introduction screen, so you can see that's my beautiful family. Blue-Eyed Marketing and Media is my side gig that I do on the side. All my kids, even my husband, has blue eyes. So that is where the name came from. So Blue-Eyed Marketing and Media. And that is me. I am a web and graphic designer. I do it in my spare time. I do it for my actual career. I still work for the state, but I do Blue-Eyed Marketing Media on the side. I absolutely love it. It's my passion, and I even go as far as into my home. So some of these tips and tools, I even implement them a little bit in my home. So I live and breathe graphic design. But so we'll kind of keep going here, and we have today's agenda. We're just going to go talk to you about where do graphic designers work, tips to improve your design skills, what softwares graphic designers use, and kind of the future where graphic designers are going.
Just thought I'd share. So what did you just forward that guy to Dave? Yeah.
All right, so there's two types of designers, and I actually done all three of these. So,
excuse me, could everyone make sure they're on mute? Could everyone please make sure you're on mute? Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Awesome. All right. So there's an in-house and a freelancer. I recommend actually, if you're interested in graphic design, to kind of do all three. And even though there's two types, but I'm going to say all three because there's a creative agency and a company when it comes to in-house. And creative agency are like at the print shops. My first job was through a print shop. It was image printing. It was a great experience for me. It allowed me to understand how document needed to be set up for print. There is a learning curve for that. So believe it or not, that's one of the things that when I went to school back in 2007, we weren't taught. So, or if we were taught it, I maybe wasn't listening that day or something, but it was great. It's been a great experience. And where I'm currently at is a company. And the difference between a creative agency and a company is a company focuses on one, it has enough work for one person to do everything for that industry. So I work just in behavioral health. And so everything that I produce, as long as a brochure, a flyer, a one-pager, it's all going to be related to behavioral health. Whereas a creative agency, you're going to get like flower shops or or dog watchers, salons. I mean, you name it, you get everything kind of thrown at you. And then a freelancer is just everything gets thrown at to you too, but you get to be your own boss. And then that will lead me into the pros and cons of each. Very briefly, in-house, the pros would be there's great experience. You learn how to meet deadlines. You have a salary that comes in steadily. Your experience, and it's great for your resumes. The cons is it's not as easy to get promoted. You don't have control over your salary. You have to go through if the company is successful and if you get promoted that way, your creativity can be limited. You kind of have to stay within the box of the company I know working for a state agency. I'm lucky that my state agency does like to push the envelope a little bit, but there is a lot of red tape that can come with that, or yellow tape. And so it gets a little frustrating for people who have creative minds that just kind of want to go nuts sometimes. Deadlines can be stressful. You can not often get paid for them, work extra hours. You're limited how much you can make. And then when you end, like you're done with that job, or you move on to a different job, sometimes you don't get to keep that work. That, I mean, most often that is their product. It's their projects, and they're not yours, and you can't put that in your portfolio. And a lot of times projects just never end, and you kind of get over them and you want to move on to some other creative fun things, and you're kind of stuck at making those tedious changes, turn into kind of a proofreader rather than a designer. And so now freelancing, the pros to that is you get to create your own schedule, you get to work wherever you want, you get to decide how much you get paid, you get to work with all the different industries, no boss, you get paid for all of the thinking and creativity and the process that goes behind graphic design. But however, the cons could be, it's hard to get successful, which we'll kind of talk about. It can be a roller coaster at times. Most often freelancers undercharge right away just to get those clients. And sometimes you get those clients that are hard to work with because your prices are so cheap. We'll talk in a minute or two, we'll talk more about that, how to work with clients. And then you get the non so fun stuff, the invoicing, the contracts, and you really, really have to be more disciplined. You do have to kind of stay organized and kind of follow up with people a little bit more. So if, that's a very big thing. If you can't be self-disciplined, definitely maybe be more of a graphic designer that's in-house. That's a big, big key, I would say, being on a freelancer as well. So the biggest thing I get is like, okay, you're a freelancer now. Like, how did that come about? What did you all have to do? And the basics are, obviously, I created my name, which came from my children. So I was inspired by that. I came up with a logo. You do all the things that people can actually see. But then it comes down to like, how much, you get the question, like, how much would you charge? And it's like, man, I don't really want to talk about money. And that's hard to talk about. Money is hard. So I have some tips for you when you're kind of setting your own budget or your price list. Is just, you price according to your experience. I had a little thinking error, but my froze up on me, sorry. So you charge based on your value, not your time. I would strongly stay away from an hourly rate. Maybe right away in the beginning, that'd be okay. But as you become more of an experienced designer, you can sometimes whip those projects out pretty quickly. Just keep that in mind. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is, what are your long-term income goals? And what I mean that is, if you came from an in-house, or if like your family or you need about $60,000 a year to pay off your bills or whatever it may be, your house or mortgage. So you want to say, okay, I need at my end of the year, I want $60,000. And then you divide that by 12 because there's 12 months. And then you divide that by a week. And then you kind of decide, like, okay, if I charge $200 for a logo, you kind of work the math out a little bit. And then you be like, okay, so I'll be okay if I'll meet my $60,000 if I do like 12 logos a year, 24 flyers, 3 brochures, 1 website. So you kind of can break it out a little bit to meet your long-term income goals. The next is just like, know your niche, and that comes from market research. That comes from getting to know other designers in the area. Maybe you're awesome at logos, so that's where you want to just really shine, and maybe put a little marketing dollars in on Facebook or social Instagram, or go to trade shows that are local. But just like, do your research, know what's out there and what you can really excel at. Another thing to consider is the platforms that you are advertising yourself. Um, so there's free stuff out there. It's Upworks and, oh my gosh, I'm spacing out the other, starts with an F. But you can go on there and you can kind of like bid on project, win project, and they always are like lower cost. People really want to get a good product for basically little amount of money. It's not all, but the experience that I've had with them, it's like they put $30 out there and they want this logo. And so, it's great to start out with, but most often I would say you just want to create your own website and start doing word of mouth, start networking. That's the best thing for you. I would say to a freelancer, that would be a really, I wish somebody would have told me that, because that's kind of how I started out with. I went on through these nationwide websites and I was trying to win these jobs through that. And then the last thing is ask for their budget. It doesn't hurt just to see where they're at. Be very transparent with them. If they come back and saying, oh no, I only can afford $10, then maybe say, well, I'm sorry, but we just can't. That's my fee is a little bit more than that. If there's anything else I can do, with you, I would love to work with you, but I just can't lower my fee maybe to $10 at this time or something like that. You can be very nice about it, very polite, but just don't short yourself when it comes to how much you should charge, because your time is worth something for sure. And then the other thing is, I get a lot of questions about like, how do you deal with your clients, especially the bad ones? And to believe it or not, there has not been a lot of bad ones. I have been working in the freelancing industry for, I would say, about 10 years now, and I've only encountered one client that I had to let go, and they've been really great to work with, and I've learned a few things along the way. The first thing I would say is you want to establish an expectation, and that is like right away with that first consult with whether you do that in an email, a phone call, or just like a face-to-face. You just want to kind of just lay it all out there. And I would say if you're going to do a phone or a face-to-face, you want to follow up with an email, something written, and that day preferably, of everything you guys talked about. So both of you can go back if there's any questions. We just forget the small little details, and you just want to recap. So take notes during that first meeting. You want to ask a lot of questions. That really, really helps you when you get down to designing. There's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I'll remember. And it just slows up the creative process, because I just think I can ask them in an email and they get tied up or the email gets lost. So try to ask as much questions as possible right away from the get-go. I love to do a Google form, and I have them based on projects. I love my logo questionnaire form that I send out a lot. And it just runs through tell me exactly what your logo is going to say, because I've ran into that where I forgot that they really wanted the LLC, and they didn't tell me they wanted the LLC, and I didn't incorporate the LLC in the logo. So now I have to go back. And so whose fault is it? So that questionnaire is really helpful for me. I ask what the colors they like, what colors they don't like. Can you provide some example? Who is your competitors? And then also just tell me about your business. What are your goals? And it just gives me more understanding, and it just kind of gives me a cheat sheet, because you can kind of get sidetracked on your conversation when you first meet. Another thing I would suggest on those bigger projects is to have a contract. I kind of lay out the schedule in my contract, and then I put kind of a clause on there, and it's saying, if for some reason we get off on the scheduling and it turns into a rush job, and there's been enough warnings and enough emails and notifications, then there's going to be an additional fee. So I go through that contract with them. I let them know they signed that contract. I signed that contract. So anything that may, like, you never want to surprise them with an extra cost unless they're aware of it. So I try to be as open and honest with that first email or the first phone call or whatever it may be. And then the pay, I know a lot of people get burned on this. They tend to do all the work and then they get ghosted kind of in the freelance world. And so I strongly recommend getting paid up front, which I know some people are like, they don't trust you if it's the first time. And so that makes them a little worried. And so I try to like work with the client and then I say, well, what would make you more comfortable to pay, right? You know, half now and then the other half at the end. And so that's usually where I end up going with them. If it's a logo that I've designed, I don't give them the final, like the actual working file, which that is Illustrator or EPS, until I receive payment. I just would give them like a JPEG and I make sure it's like pretty small so they can't really use it for much of anything if they choose not to pay me. So that's what I've learned working with clients. And we're gonna move on to like tips of the design tips for designing. So if there's any questions when it comes to like clients or like expectations of freelancers or anything like that, please ask now. Otherwise, we'll move on. I'll give you a minute or two.
And you can put your questions in the chat as well, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Yell at me if I don't see them. So, okay. 10 tips. And I'm sure you guys might know some of these tips. They're just, you know, even when I was putting this together, I was like, man, this is some good reminders for myself. So it's always fun to have little tips here. And keep it simple as much as it's fun to like, you know, have lots of color and text and design elements. Sometimes the best posters and the best logos or anything that are just really, really simple. You know, don't overthink it. Just really is just, that's like one of the first thing I learned. And, you know, we call it the KISS, which is, you know, the other S is not the nicest word to say. So we'll move on. And, you know, use a cohesive color palette. That can kind of come from two ways. Sometimes people come with you with an actual brand that's already been established. So you just, in this case, Parents Lead, they have the blues. So when I was finding an image, I wanted to make sure that I kept the cool blues. And so you just, you know, you want no more than 3 to 5 colors. You know, so if you're picking, there's tools out there. There's Adobe Color to pick that you can import an image and then they can kind of pick the colors from there and they can give you those numbers, those hex numbers. But try to, you know, not be a rainbow. 3 to 5 color palette is preferred. And then you want to keep your typography under control. I absolutely love typography. It's like one of my favorite things. I love looking for new typography. There's some great websites out there. One that I use a lot is dafont.com. There are new fonts being loaded all the time, but fonts really help you tell the story. It helps you with the hierarchy, the emphasizes thing, the contrast. It's so much fun to do, in my opinion. But you want to stay down to like 2 fonts to kind of get you a different look and feel. You really could play with the font weights, as you notice on the side. The loud is like a really bold font and the quiet is like a very thin, light font. All the same font family, just different weights. And so that's what I would encourage everybody to, when you pick a font, like you might have, as you see in my presentation, I have like a script font, but all the other font is the same. They're just different weights. And then I play with like the spacing in between the letters. So you can kind of get a different look just by doing some of those. And then there is a lot of websites out there. Google Fonts also does this. When you download a font, they kind of give you like good fonts to pair it with, which is awesome. I know, check out Google Fonts. They do such a good job when you're downloading the fonts. And that green, the last column, is this fonts that graphic designers are like, ooh, please don't use. So Comic Sans, it's always like a joke when I went to school and stuff, like doing logos with Comic Sans. And so not saying like, you can do what you want, but I would say like try to avoid like those, how many are there? 6 fonts over on the side. Another thing to consider is your visual hierarchy of the design. That's basically how you're seeing, like where your eye is going to go, where your eye is automatically drawn to. You as a designer are trying to tell a story in your design piece, so you have to do that kind of with your elements. So your headers are usually centered, and then they're the largest font. That's your main focus. And then if you have like an important tip, I often pair it with an icon. And then, in your block of text, is there an action, or is there something really important? Maybe you bold it, maybe you turn it into a different color. Is there a statistic? I like to use infographics with statistics. Something that I was taught in school is the Z. And so you make a Z with your eyes. That's kind of how you want to line things up. And now I think, oh gosh, is it X now? I can't remember. There's some other, but the Z is kind of the old fashioned way when it comes to hierarchy. Oh. And then try to keep a lot of white space. Try to do white space. That's kind of like one of my other favorite things to do. Lots of white space. It makes it very clean, and it allows your eyes to kind of go to that element. It makes it more legible. And then white space is not necessarily white. It can be a color. It can be an image, a pattern, a shape. The example that I have is an image. That in white space also comes down to, keeping it simple, less is more. If you can, try to divide your graphics. If you have a lot of content, try to make more than one graphic. If you can't do that, then that's when you want to go back to your typography and play with that and kind of bold headlines, subheadlines, and colors, and do something like that to kind of separate the elements. Having a cohesive design element is also very important. When you think of Target and all the big brands, how you kind of just always know when you see a commercial or see a piece of like a flyer or a postcard or anything that you're getting maybe in the mail. And so you start trusting marketing firm or a company, you start trusting that company a little bit more. You're more loyal to that company when you see more consistent marketing. It makes it more memorable for you. So that design that I have here is a lot of like sharp edges. They even did it in their icons. They did it in their buttons. So that's a very consistent look that this company uses. So you want to just keep that in mind, not to change it up all the time. Consistency is good. And then obviously you want to make sure everything is readable. There's enough contrast. It's easy to scan. Font should match the message, so if you're talking about some large, oh my gosh, something that you would loud or something like I don't even know, like that example that I had, like the loud was bold. If you want you want to make sure, wouldn't really make sense to have that loud be like a skinny font. You're kind of feeling like your design needs to be more modern, I would stick to that skinny looking font. So you would match that font with your message, and then keep your contrast really the bottom would be really hard for somebody that can't read or from a distance. You gotta consider the color. Colors make you feel a certain way. Colors also help it stand out. Red for Coca-Cola, that orange for Amazon, Facebook blue. Color can make you feel emotions, and then every color has a meaning. So when you are choosing colors, those 3 to 5 colors from the beginning, look them up, understand what they do, and make sure it lines with the goal that you have. And then know your dimensions. And this is kind of for like online, because social media, like, thank you social media for giving me all these different sizes that I now have to remember. Facebook and Instagram, and you get Twitter and everybody, and you just get to resize all these images now. But also just keep in mind, like, this, a billboard. Like, for example, I think my first billboard that I printed, I think the logo was teeny tiny because I just forgot to make it bigger. I don't know how I did that. And so, just kind of like try to visualize it, try to see, like, go, if it's a logo, go to town, go look at that, and you want to prepare your artwork, your art board, that exact size, so you aren't enlarging someone who's printing it isn't enlarging it, or it could, because it could make it less sharp and not be visually appealing anymore. So you really want to know your size. You want to make your art the right size when you're starting the project. And that will really help. And so now, because I talked about your artboard, and that's kind of the first thing that you want to know when you get this project. So now it's like, okay, what program do I use? And there's like really no right or wrong. I will tell you, like, kind of what I was told in my class and kind of what I do. The Photoshop and Illustrator, InDesign are the 3 that you get taught when you have a graphic design degree. And there's also more to that. There's like creative suites that have like their Adobe After Effects and Premiere Pro. I can't talk apparently. What other things? But that kind of gets into like more of a multimedia position. And as a graphic designer, you kind of really work on these 3 are your main programs, and that what you use to make your vision come to life. So Photoshop, I usually always use Photoshop whenever pictures are in. Like, if you take a picture from the stock Adobe stock or Shutterstock or iPhoto, or just find it somewhere online, or you take the photo, you pretty much always have to enhance it in Photoshop. A lot of the times, I don't go to this extreme. This is very pretty. I'm changing the color of the clouds and stuff. But a lot of times what I need is I have a vertical poster, and they only gave me horizontal, or I only can find horizontal, and it just doesn't quite work. I need to have more white space. What you can do is you can mask the background. So it's basically repeating the background. And then, it will give you more, you can make more clouds on the top, and then you can put your text on top of that. So I use Photoshop pretty much in every kind of way, but Photoshop will save as pixels. So it is not ideal for logos. You want to make logos in Illustrator. And here is some examples of Illustrator. You want to create your logos in there. You want to take illustrations, your graphics, your icons, all that can be done in Illustrator. Down below, I have 5 graphics, and this is kind of like a cheat sheet. Oh my goodness, I can't. It's a different way to do, like, I know animation is really in right now, but it's just like a different way to do it if you don't quite know animation. If you think of your phone, Usually you'll slide, like if you have multiple images download on social media, like on their platform, they'll give you like kind of a carousel, and then you kind of can like swipe through it. So we do this kind of often if we can't do, and like we don't have time to do animation. So if you notice, like the clouds are kind of like, are on one and then finish on the other one. So you kind of tells the story without animation. And that's all done in Illustrator. Another cheaper, because InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop is kind of a packaged thing. So kind of get a little bit cheaper if people who are just starting out, beginning. There's Canva or Figma. I think I'm saying that right. I've used Canva a lot, actually, because as a designer, some people want to just, they can't really necessarily afford you forever. So I have set up, like, I asked them like, okay, would it be helpful if I set up some templates for you in Canva, and then you just use that? And they, that most of them are like, yes, that's great. They're a small business. They want to get a kick off in the right direction, but they just can't keep affording you. So I do that a lot for my clients, is just set up templates for them in Canva.
What up with you?
Oh, just watching this webinar.
And then we have InDesign.
Design tips.
Then we have InDesign, and that is
Yeah.
how do you kind of pull it all together?
Oh, yeah.
Magazines, info
I do.
sheets, brochures, annual reports. This is a data book like that I just did. The other alternative to that would be Microsoft Publisher. What I love about InDesign is you can set up
Find the
style.
time and
Excuse me, Becca, could you mute your microphone, Becca? If you would mute your microphone, thank you very much.
So it's easy for you to set up styles in there. So if you have a consistent look throughout, once that's set up, your paragraph styles, your character styles, it's a click of a button. You're not constantly saying, okay, I want this to be this green, I want it to be this font, and you're not constantly changing it. That's the one awesome thing that InDesign does. And actually, Illustrator does it too, but InDesign is more meant for it. And then you can export it as a PDF or HTML. So that's a really cool feature that InDesign has. And then I know you guys wanted to talk a little bit about motion graphics or animation. I'm gonna more talk about motion graphics because that's kind of like the medium, the halfway point between a graphic design and animation, because none of us are probably gonna be making a Disney movie anytime soon. And if you are, that's amazing, because that seems like a lot of work and a lot of time. But so basically a motion graphic is just taking a static graphic, which I've done. I do this a lot for our social media, and making some kind of motion to it to be more effective, to be more engaging, to bring more brand awareness. It could be very, you could have the text come in all fun and funky, or you can make it very subtle. I always just make things subtle when it comes to that. It's just because more so it's just kind of quick and easy and something I can do very fast. But we have looked at our analytics, and these graphics perform so much better than just a static image. So when to use these motion graphics, definitely use it when you're going to cut through the noise. There's just so much stuff out there when it comes to when you're online, and there's so much stuff to look at. And when you pull up social media, you're kind of always in like a daze, like your target audience is kind of just like wasting time or just bored. So like a static image doesn't quite grab their attention, but something like this eye moving, you can't help but look at it. Another thing to use motion design or graphics is when you're trying to tell like a story or a concept or a process. I've done that a lot in my behavioral health. We've done, a lot of people struggle with what prevention was. So we kind of there's a prevention story about like a bridge and whatever. So we made that into an animation, and it was just like people like, they just like, oh my gosh, I get it now for some reason. And it just, a lot of people don't like to read anymore. So having a little animation, a little graphics for that can really help get that storytelling across and get people to notice. Another thing is to extend the content's lifespan. And what I mean by that is every year, if you saw my data book, like in a couple of slides back, we do that every other year. I'd say we do this huge data booklet. And most of the time, like in the previous years, you send out a link, you send out an email, and you say, here, this is it. I made this 50-page document, check out the PDF. Well, a lot of work went into that, your annual report, a lot of work went into it. So you can take bits and pieces of that and turn it into an animation. There's probably data points. You can have a graphic, a pie chart, you can fill it up, you can roll it in or something. And then you can say, learn more, check out this link, and have it be the link of the data booklet or the annual report. So you'll extend that life of that data booklet by doing something like that. And what programs to use for motion graphics? There's a lot of Adobe products, Animate, After Effects, and Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is great for like voiceovers. A lot of times you record yourself and then you have pauses or you redo it, so you can chop up video for that. But it is a learning curve to do something like a little bit more simple. Vizio would definitely be a way to go, just if you want to like learn and check it out, don't really know what you're doing, but want to tackle it. Animate is also very easy when it comes to like if you have like, for example, what the 6 things to say if you're your child, that was done in Illustrator. And then you can export it into Animate, and then you can just turn off your layers. And that's basically what all this graphic is just turning off the layers on and off, on and off. And then I export it as an animated GIF. And that's what I export to social media. So that is another easy way. After Effects is going to give you a lot. Like After Effects is used in some like a lot of commercials use After Effects, like a lot of big wigs use After Effects. Some movies even use After Effects. So there's a big learning curve for that. So I don't really know it as much, and I would love to, but I stay pretty busy with just an actual static images and making those graphics. So it's hard to dive into that right now. So, I mean, that is it. We have about 20 minutes for questions. If you guys have anything, if there's something that I didn't cover and that you wanted just to ask, that I am open for anything. I try to cater this presentation to what you guys wanted to hear, but if I misunderstood, we have 20 minutes, so please ask away.
Amy, we have a couple of questions in the chat. One is, from Olivia, she asked, how do you build your freelance clients?
Oh, yes. A lot of it had to do, believe it or not, my mom, she's like my biggest advocate, but she just tells everybody that she knows about me, which is great. But I mean, it's really just word of mouth. And what has worked for me is search engine optimizations and my keywords on my website. When people tend to Google you or Google what they're looking for, so you want to make sure that you're kind of putting your website to work. I think I took a presentation a while back, and there's like 2 types of, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but there's a farmer and a hunter, I think is what it is. And a hunter will like, be very proactive and be out there and like knocking on people's door and networking and just like getting as much as they can. That is not me, unfortunately. I have 3 kids. So I'm more of a farmer. I have my small clientele. I've been very fortunate that they come back, and I have one that is monthly, and they give me work monthly, and I've been working with them for 5 years. we have that, that loyalty. And I found that one actually, I guess I would say I did I did hunt for that one. I was on social media, there's groups that you can join. And there was a woman oh my goodness, a women's group, and they post a lot of times like, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. And then you have to be very quick. You have to have your elevator speech or something quickly typed out so you can copy and paste it. But that's how I got this client that I've been working with for 5 years. And she is from North Carolina. She is so much fun to work with. They do things different down the South, so there's a learning curve, but don't just limit to your town. I would definitely, even North Dakota, North Dakota, sometimes we're more conservative when it comes to that. We think we can do it ourselves sometimes. Not all of us are like that, but I ran into that a lot. Don't necessarily see the value as much as like maybe some other states. So, try to get onto social medias, try to get onto those groups, and then just build up your portfolio. And I don't know, I can't see the chat. What was the other question?
Yes. Macy had a question. She wanted to know what program your slideshow is in.
Oh, yes. Canva. Yeah, I was looking up, I always do PowerPoint. I open up PowerPoint. I'm like, wow, this just is like, for being a designer, I don't like that. So I just Googled like other ways, and that's what I found out. It's news to me too. So I was very excited it's a very cool program, to check it out. I'm going to tell everybody who I know who does presentations to do that instead. And they have a lot of free templates out there. So yeah.
Jennifer, she said she didn't take any graphic design classes in college. So she's putting out a question to anyone who can help. Does anyone have tips for basic online classes or websites that can help her learn besides YouTube?
Gosh, I know like Adobe Creative Suites. I would check that out. I do think they offer some kind of classes. Another thing what you could do is, there's a lot of influencers out there these days. If there's somebody that you see like on social media and that you kind of like, there's a lot, they'll usually do like a promotion video, or they'll do some other YouTube videos, and they always like try to sell themselves and take like workshops. I've done a couple of those, and I found value in those, and a lot like what we're doing today, but they're more specific in one topic. But I definitely would just take a look at Adobe Creative Suite, and especially if you buy their package, some of that training probably would be for free, kind of, in a way. You bought the program, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? And you should be able to unmute and speak if you'd rather do that, or you can type in the chat. I'm not seeing any other questions, so. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to visit with our group today. And it was good. You covered a variety of things that I asked you to cover, so that's good. It should have appealed to everyone who has different needs that they're looking for.
Yeah, and I'll just shoot, don't be afraid. I'm gonna put my email in the chat right now if you guys want to save that. And if you have any questions later on, so it's sometimes with communication, you feel like you're the only one that can speak your language. So if you ever need to bounce ideas off of me, or just if you even share things that you might find, if you find, oh, I guess I do see there's a question, what's the biggest challenge you came across as a designer? My biggest challenge that I came across is I don't know if it would be like it was just how to deal with learning how to deal with a client that didn't value me and quite understand the process. That was really, really hard to deal with because my personality is I want everybody to love me. And I'm very like, I love working with people, and I love that project that she like what she was promoting. But the personality, her personality and my personality, we weren't really on track. It was just not the right fit. And so that was just like, I guess the biggest challenge for me is like, I never had dealt with that. It was a very like eye-opening experience for me. And I struggled with it because she was very big in the community, and I was afraid if I would fire her or let her go or anything like that, she would kind of blacklist me or, like talk bad about me to all these other people and all these other influencers. So I was very scared. But it was affecting my home life. She was asking me to work really late hours, and there was deadlines with this project because it needed to go to print at a certain time, and it wasn't a good fit. So we ended up finishing our first magazine. She asked me how it was going, and that was my opportunity to kind of say, hey, I don't think this is really working out. And she felt it too. She loved my work, but it was very mutual. But it was a challenge. I never had to come across that. So so just don't be afraid to be like open and honest. I would say most of the time they feel it too. But it's hard not to have, take those jobs in and see them go too. So it's a struggle. And then, eventually I think one of my challenges for myself is that I deal with every day is like, can I do this full time? Can I quit my day job and just work as a freelancer? So that's a challenge that I'm facing right now. So, but it is fun. I love it. So definitely like try, take those classes. I went through BSc to do my graphic design. I think mine at State has it. I was looking into mine at State. My mother picked my degree, which is crazy to think because I was not loving what I was going for. It was business administration. So she was like, hey, you've always liked Photoshop. Maybe you should do that. And I did, and it was 2 years. That's only what it was, but it was awesome. It's only 4 hours each day. So this is something that you guys are really interested in. I really strongly check out what BSc has to offer because it was an amazing program for me, and it has changed my life. I was going to work in business for I don't even know what I was going to do, but I really, really enjoy graphic design.
I don't see any more questions in the chat, but you can see the chat now, right? So you
Yeah, I can see
look
it
through
now
those
that
comments. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for everyone who tuned in today. This will be recorded and posted on our website. So if you know somebody who wasn't able to make it, but would like to view it, they can do that. Well, thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Good job.
Thanks.